Chavtes and Beis. These are things that have to be said in Hebrew. No, much easier Gemara tonight than the last line. These are the things which are said in Hebrew. Mikra Bikurim, the parsha when you read the Bikur, when you say the parsha you say to the Kohen when you bring the Bikurim, the Chalitza, and the parsha of Chalitza, the Rachos, Uklolos, the blessings and curses. Now, blessings and curses, we don't have them anymore, but when Am Yisrael entered Eretz Yisrael, so they said the brachos and Har Grizim and the Klolos and Har Evo, and we're going to come to the next mission in greater detail when we start specifying. Birkas Kohanim is also only in Hebrew. Birkas Kohen Gadol, what the Kohen Gadol says when he exits the Kodesh Kodashim, and Parshas Hamelech, the parsha which the king reads at Hakel, who Parshas Egla Rufa, what the basin says when they kill the Egla Rufa, when the guy was murdered and we don't know who murdered him, and the Kohen is anointed to speak to the nation b'shloshim medaber alone when he speaks to the nation. Okay, now we're going to detail these things. Mikra Bikurim Ketzad. What's this? What happens by Mikra Bikurim when you read the parsha of the Bikurim? So then we say, I don't know specifically in Hebrew, Ketzad, because it says when they bring the Bikurim, Vanisa, you should respond Vamarta and say, Lifnei Hashem Elokecha, before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ulalon, and by the brachos and klolos, it says, Vanu Alvim Vamru El Kol Ish Yisrael. It says Levim should respond and say to all of Kol Ish Yisrael, to all Jews, Kol Rom, in a loud voice. Ma'ani Amur Lomar, just like the statements by the brachos and klolos are in Hebrew, so too Afkan B'Lashon HaKodesh. So to here it's also in Hebrew. Chalitza Ketzad. How do we know Chalitza Spidaf could be the parsha, the conversation has to take place in Hebrew. Ketzad V'Onsa V'Amra says she should respond and say, Kacha Yes Elohim. So too will be done to the man who doesn't want to build his brother's house. So this also Aniya V'Amira, the two words Gzereshava, to the case of Levim and the brachos and klolos. V'Amru, and they say V'Amru Omer. Later on it says V'Amru Levim V'Amru, right? Ma'aniya Amura L'Halam B'Lashon HaKodesh. That's why the brachos and klolos was in Hebrew. Avkam B'Lashon HaKodesh. So too it's in Hebrew. Rabbi Omer V'Ansa V'Amra Kacha. He says a slightly different version of this. He says V'Ansa V'Amra Kacha, right? Now, it really says V'Ansa V'Amra Kacha Yes Eloish. But he dashes V'Ansa V'Amra Kacha. She has to say it Azoi, this way specifically, which means in Hebrew. Okay? So the Kacha is going on according to him on the language.
What is it a Xerishir, what is it a Hekish?
A Hekish is where it's just a logical construct without words. Here we're using the words of Ani and Amir.
The reason why I'm asking is because Ansa and Amra are the same meanings, but it's not the same word.
Yeah, but the word, it's permutations of the words, and that suffices. The permutations of the words suffice. Until she says in such a language of Chalitza. Okay, now in the I have to tell you, in the Bavli, there's a whole discussion about Kocha and how Rabbi Yehuda's drasha works. And I'll be honest with you, I did not find it that terribly interesting to do the comparison shopping between the Bavli and Yerushalmi on that matter. Sorry about that. But there is some discussion about how the drashos is regarded by the Bavli and Yerushalmi, but we're just going to gloss over that. Again, my apologies, but somehow I tend to think you would not have been terribly more excited than I was. Okay, Tani B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda. Words in the name Rabbi Yehuda. The ko, again, this is what I'm referring to, right? That the Bavli has some more expanded discussion. B'chlal, this parak is very long in Bavli. Lots of agadas on the Bavli on this, much more than the Yerushalmi. But okay, but we know that's usually the case. Tani b'shem Rabbi Yehuda, b'shem Rabbi Lashon hazeh, Aniya v'Amira kocha. The koi says azoi. Kocha and Koyer languages of Azoi, Blush Nakodesh. It's Gram Hebrew. Amar Blazer says, Binyan of Shibakula. Now, he really doesn't want to learn, like you asked me about Gzera Shava. He doesn't want to learn Gzera Shava. He wants to learn the Binyan of. A Binyan of means without words, necessarily, without the parallel based on words, but rather a parallel concept, right? Binyan means there's a single construct from which we can extrapolate to the rest of Torah. And this is an example. Moshe Daber, Elokim Yaner B'Kol, right? It says Moshe spoke and HaKadosh Baruch Hu assisted him. Now obviously by amplifying his voice. Now obviously there, that is talking about Hebrew, right? Because it was Daseres Adibros, which was being spoken. So there we say that with Lashon HaKodesh is spoken, and therefore everywhere else where we have cases of speech, we assume that it's speaking about Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, every case where people speak, just like Moshe Daber Elokim Yaner B'Kol. I'm sorry. Every place where you have the word Aniyah, every place where you have the word Aniyah, because it says Yaner B'Kol, it's talking about Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, so the Binyan of would not require precise Gzera. It's not a Gzera Shava. It's an interesting, very fine distinction. I'm not even sure I fully understand the distinction myself, to be honest with you. But we're learning a construct that Aniyah means, the word Aniyah means Lashon HaKodesh. So it says more, how can you say this? It doesn't say Vayan Lavan and Besuel. This discussion I don't believe is in the Bible. It says that Lavan and Besuel answered. Where do they answer that? Who remembers what that's speaking about? What do they say? Lavan and Besuel. Yeah, who are they answering to?
Oh, well,
whether Rivka can go, right, whether Rivka goes with Eliezer. So they're answering Eliezer. So what language do you think they were speaking? Aramaic. They weren't speaking Hebrew. So it says there, and if you're going to say that here it says Aniyah, right, and it doesn't say Amira, right, right? So, and this really is the issue. The two, I don't know, it's choppier than Gemara, but it seems to not require Aniyah plus Amira. It's the Gzera Shava which requires Aniyah plus Amira.
Maybe it's Aniyah, a Jew speaking to another Jew. Here you have two non-Jews speaking to each other.
No, because Eliezer, I think, is considered for this purpose to be Jewish. Because he Mistama spoke to Avraham Avinu in Hebrew. That's what we assume. So perhaps we're incorrect about that, but that's what we assume. So anyway, so it seems the Gemara is asking on two levels. That the construct of the Binyan Av doesn't apply, and B, even the Gzera Shava shouldn't apply. Maybe say here it's only Aniyah. It says Vayan Lavan B'Suel Vayomru, and they said, right? Now, if you're going to say that the Amira here had a different meaning. Amira means, and this is based on the Ritbaz, and it's a fun. It's a strange line, and I don't like his interpretation that much, but I don't have a better one. He says, if you're going to say that here the word Amira is not part of the Gzera Shava, because here the word Amira is necessary in order to note that they agreed with Eliezer. In other words, Aniyah, the Ritbaz wants to say, you might have said Aniyah by itself means a response. A response could mean a rejection. And then it says Vayomru, that it wasn't a rejection, but rather an acquiescence. So maybe we would not make the Gzera Shava here, certainly not the Binyan of it, maybe not even the Gzera Shava, because I would say it's like it's not mufne. That I need the Aniyah for the actual response, and the Amira to tell me that they responded positively as opposed to negatively. So it says that's not necessary. It says, and from the text of their response, we know that they agreed. Right? It says So the Amira should be mufne. It should be superfluous, and therefore it should be allowed us to make the Gzera Shava. Right? Now, and maybe you'll say they were speaking Hebrew. They didn't speak Hebrew. Well, Ksidan said, Lavan called the rock which he put up with Yaakov as a monument when they took their final leave from each other. Lavan called the Yagar Sadus because Lavan spoke Aramaic. So obviously the Gemara is saying, I don't know if we've ever seen this explicitly in Shas, But the Gemara is saying that even though conversations in the Torah are recorded in Hebrew, nevertheless, that's just the way they recorded for the purpose of the Chumash. But it's possible when Yosef, of course, spoke to Paro, that Yosef spoke in Egyptian, right? Which, in fact, is indicated by the fact Rashi brings down that Paro did not know Hebrew. So obviously, all these things are translations. Okay, so I was listening to a book recently. It was some novel by Sir Walter Scott. I forget which one. So I was wondering, it struck me with these spilos for some reason that here's a guy writing in the early 19th century, and he uses, it seemed to me like a modern technique. I don't know why, but it seems that he develops a theme, and then jumps to another thread and develops that theme, and then jumps to another thread and develops that theme, and so on and so forth. Then he comes back and ties them all together. So I was thinking, gee, wow, where do you get that technique? So he said, I realized it's really the Chumash itself which does that all the time. You have by Yosef and Yehuda, and the Chumash jumps back and forth. The Chumash is really, if one reads the Chumash as literature, then actually you see. Yeah, I know the book. So so you read but he reads his poetry, I think. But no literature. Okay. So in any event, then actually you see that this is a precedent for, I guess, great novelists. But here we see that in fact the Torah's precedent was also that it translated. Right? That's actually everything they say is a translation. Anyway, that's just rambling. Now this is similar to what you want to say. Maybe Vayanu Vayomru, that teaches us that it's in Hebrew, whether it's a Binyanav or Yerushalmi, is only after Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, maybe they were speaking gibberish. We don't know what they were speaking before. So it could be that it doesn't mean anything. Says the Gemara, Hare Parshasness of funny reputation. Hare Parshas Vidu Meiser. Hare La'acham Matan Torah Bunemar B'chol Lashon. We had the Parsha Vidu Meiser, when a person comes to, tell the Kohen that he did everything which he has to do with Vidu Meiser, with the Meiser during the past 3 years, and it's after Matan Torah, right? And yet, even though it says over there of Aniyah, V'nemar b'chol lashon, it can be said in any language. So, I'm not sure exactly what the Gemara was actually doing with this, but I think what the Gemara is trying to do, and this is just my hunch, I can't prove it to you, but I think what the Gemara is trying to do is to say that a binyan of won't work. A binyan of would mean that any place where there's conversation that says aniyah, in and of itself, means Hebrew. Says the Gemara, that can't be. Because sometimes it means Hebrew, and sometimes it doesn't mean Hebrew. Clearly for Matan Torah, it doesn't mean Hebrew. After Matan Torah also, it doesn't mean specifically Hebrew, right? So therefore, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It can't therefore be a binyan of, it's got to be Gzera Shava. How does the Gzera Shava work? So we're saying the way the Gzera Shava works is wherever it says Aniyah and Amira, it means that, in fact, it has to be Lashon HaKodesh. What about Lavan? Right? So on that we could say, Take, since Lavan's before Matan Torah, there's no halachic ramification there. And therefore there's no Gzera Shava to be made. I'm making this all up as I go along, but I think that that's what the gist of the Gemara is. That a binyan of would be a construct which we would have to apply before Matan Torah as well. Because it's like an etymology. It's telling us what the word means. That's what the Gemara says, don't use binyan of, use a Gzera Shava. Gzera Shava we apply selectively to all the places where it teaches halachos, but we're not going to apply to the historic thing of before Matan Torah to where Lavan and Besul responded.
When Bill, Vayisam Shalom,
it was in Hebrew. Pashas was in Hebrew. I think so.
Was Hebrew?
Yeah, I think so. I think because it was, put into his mouth. So I think those are definitely Hebrew. Okay, but I can't prove that to you. I'm just going
to throw this out. It's a ridiculous point. The point from this Gemara is that it's possible that Adam Arishan can speak Hebrew.
It's possible. It's true. it's true. But the Midrash would say he spoke Lashon HaKodesh. Yeah, but it's possible. I mean, the tradition is that Migdal Bavel. I think we had that somewhere in Yerushalmi. That Migdal Bavel is where the languages change, languages split, but everybody spoke Lashon HaKodesh till then. And Aramaic only came into existence at that point. I think we had that somewhere, but I don't recall where it was. All right, Yeshua ben Achmashim Yochanan said, "Shloya Lashon Sursi Kavinecha." Look, Aramaic, which is called Sursi, is one of the dialects of Aramaic. You shouldn't take it lightly. English, it's not in Tanakh, but Aramaic, it did make the cut, right? But Torah says, that's a pasuk in Aramaic. But the being ksiv kid not tame alone, so should say them. That's Aramaic. B'ksuvim ksiv vayidabru kastim lamelech aramis. That's a funny. I don't know why we're using that pasuk. I mean, half of Ezra and Nehemiah is written in Aramaic. You don't need to.
Daniel is written in.
And Avad Daniel, right? But I guess that's true. Avad Daniel is. But I guess we're bringing down that as, just the shorthand to tell us that there's a lot of Aramaic in Ksuvim. All right. Rabbi Yehuda said the base Guvrin. Rabbi Yehuda said base Guvrin said an interesting drasha, which, if I recall correctly, is in the Bavli, but I don't remember where. There's 4 languages which are nice to use in the world. Oh, is that what it is? We had this in Yerushalmi. Veluhain. Okay, Veluhain. Laz. The Laz is some foreign language. It's a Rashi thing.
It was Greek.
What?
We had it before. It was Greek, wasn't it?
It was Greek. I think so. Yeah. The Carmel says Greek. Laz, and that's Lezemer is good for song. Romi, Latin. Lekrav is good for war. Sursi, Aramaic, is good. La'iliyah for kinnis, for lamentations, and Ivri is good ledibur. It's good for speaking. Okay? It's interesting. It's not a Zionistic statement here. It just says the Hebrew is a good language to speak. I don't know, maybe because it's a parsimonious language. You get more things said with less words. Some say a 5th one, Af Ashuri Liksav. So to Ashuris is good for writing. Ashuri, if we had it in Yerushalmi, probably we had it in Shabbos, because it was the last place we had major statements about writing, but I don't know. Ashuri yesh bo ksav ein bo lashon. Ashuri's got a nice alphabet. It doesn't have a good spoken language. Doesn't mean it doesn't have a language to speak. It means, the Korban says it's not a nice language to speak. Ashuri does not have the same geschmack that Hebrew does. Ivri yesh bo lashon, it's got a nice language. Ve'ein bo ksav. It doesn't have a nice writing, right? Because the ancient Hebrew print is not so nice. It must have been in Shabbos, because this probably was in the parak of Rabbi Akiva, where we spoke about Ksav Ashuris, right? Because Yerushalmi, we said back then, Ksav Ashuris is definitely later on, not like the Bavli. And here it is also. Bachulem Ksav Ashuri v'Lashon Ivri. They chose Ksav Ashuri and Lashon Ivri, right? So it's like, clearly like Yerushalmi Shita, that it's a later thing that was the Klal Yisrael choose. V'lamani krashma Ashuri shumu ushar b'ksavo. It is praiseworthy in its writing. All right, Levi Shiva said, Hashem shalom b'yodem Ashur. No, it's because they came up with them from Ashur. Okay, getting back to the brachos and close which given har grizimar as evo. See if it says v'anu alavim v'amro kol ish Yisrael kol ram. The Levim should respond and say to all of Am Yisrael, Kol Ram. B'kolo shel Ram. It means with the voice of the Most High. So to speak, Kodesh Baruch Hu's voice assists with the Levim. We provide amplification. Another interpretation, Kol Ram doesn't mean a loud voice, but a lofty voice. Ham'ula shebekolos. The more lofty voice is what's that? Amitzak lo koton, not a squeak, but lo gadol, not very deep. Elabainoni, I guess a tenor is the in between voice, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it was a nice voice. Okay? One second. I'm sorry, I forgot that you showed me elsewhere. Okay. Brachos to close, Ketzad. How did brachos to close work? Came at Rav Yisrael Sayad, they one time saw passed over the Jordan River, who brought La Grizim Arabel, they came to Grizim Arabel, should be Shomron, in Shomron, Shabbatzad Shchem, near Shchem, Eitzel Elonei Moreh, Sbai Elonei Moreh, with a whole bunch of Yishuvim, which will not or may or may not last at this point. Shenamar, it says, Lohema Bevar Yardain, they are on the other side of the Jordan River. Ula'alon Omer, now it says, Har Grizim and Har Evo are Eber Yardain. And it doesn't say by Shechem. It doesn't say that here. But it says, Yerushalmi, it says, Elohim Bever Yardain. Ula'alon Omer, it says by Avram, Vayavor Avram Bar Tamakom Shechem Adolom Moreh. It does say, it does say by Har Grizim Har Evo that they're by Elom Moreh. It doesn't say they're by Shechem. So the Gemara says, and how do we know that they're by Shechem? So we make a Yerushalmi to Avram. Avram's Elom Moreh was by Shechem. My Elom Moreh, Murla Alon Shechem, Afi Elom Moreh, Murkan, so to Elom Moreh, which is mentioned here, is also Shechem as well. Okay?
Elom is different than Elom Moreh.
Oh, absolutely. Elom Moreh is near Hebron. Elom Moreh is near Shechem. Well, now that's actually what we're going to discuss now. Halohema baby, I'm now going to analyze this pasuk, and this machlok is also in the Bavli. Halohema baby Yardain says Hargizim Evo. It says the pasuk Halohema baby Yardain means Yardain Alon, distant from the Jordan River. Achrei derech mavor shemesh, beyond the way of the coming of the sun. Makom shachama zrach, so it's far from the east. Mizrach is Zricha, where the sun rises. So in Eretz Yisrael, far from the sunrise over the Jordan River, right, you will find Har Grizim Bar Evel, not adjacent to the Jordan River. It's further into Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Be'eretz HaKnani Yoshe Ba'arava, in the land of Knani who reside in the plains, Mula Gilgal, Eitzel No Moreh, that's all the part of the pasuk. Zeh Har Grizim Bar Evel, Vol is Har Grizim Bar Evel, Sheben HaKutim, which is in the section of the land which now belongs to the Samaritans, Steve Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda holds Har Grizim Har Evel are what are identified as Har Grizim Har Evel today, which are by Shechem, which is also where Elonei Moreh is, and that Mula Gilgal. The problem is that the problem is in the Shai Torah Yisrael is a very nice and long interpretation here. You know, so Gilgal was a place where they came to right after they entered Eretz Yisrael. That's where Yeshua came in Bris Milah. So it says, part of the problem is reconciling. The Korban Eda actually notes that there's a mistake in the Bavli, he claims, because it says that Gilgal is next to Shem. He says, clearly not true. So therefore, and that's a problem also which the Yerushalmi kind of glosses over. The Bavli says explicitly Gilgal is next to Shem. The Yerushalmi never makes that point, but it seems that way from this sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that's saying that the Har Grizim Har Evel are Be'er Yardain, Achrei derech mavor shemesh, what's the rest of the pasuk? Be'eretz HaKnani Yoshe Ba'arava, Mul HaGilgal, Eitzel Elonei Moreh. So here too it says Mul HaGilgal is going on. Seems that Gilgal is next to Elonei Moreh. So the Shai Torah Yisrael says the pshat is that the Pashup pshat is that there are two Gilgals. There was one Gilgal by Elonei Moreh and by Shechem, which was known in Parshas Re'eh already when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to take them there. They should be taken there after they enter Eretz Yisrael to get the brachos and clothes. And there was another Gilgal which Yeshua named when he was Mal B'nai Yisrael, because it says Ayom Kalosi Cherpas Mitzrayim Me'alechem. So he says the way to Miyashiv the Girs and the Bavli, which Korban erases, and the way to understand the Psukim is that there are two Gilgals, one of which was the one which existed, and there was another one later on, which Yeshua made. And he actually says something fascinating, which is totally off topic, but it's fascinating. There's a pasuk in Bereshit, a very problematic pasuk. It says that Avraham Avinu pursued the Arba Malachim, the four kings, Daraloma, and all those guys, till Adon. And of course, it's a difficult pasuk because Don is not supposed to exist at the time, right? Don was one of the Shvatim which wasn't yet born. So it's like an anachronistic pasuk. So even Ezra says it's Alpi Nevuah. And Rashi also alludes to Alpi Nevuah. But it's still difficult because Adon didn't actually move up there until many years later. Because even Don's original portion of Eretz Yisrael was much to the south. That's a very powerful Nevuah. And why didn't they realize that when they entered Eretz Yisrael that there's a Nevuah in Chumash that Don is going to be in the north, right? They only conquered that much later in Sefer Shoftim. So in any event, in fact, I think this might be one of the psukim which the Ibn Ezra which got the Ibn Ezra in trouble, because a few psukim in Shas, Ibn Ezra alludes to a belief that maybe it was inserted in the Torah later on. So I think this might be one of the psukim in which he makes that allusion. But in any event, but the Shai Thursday says there's a beautiful pshat. He says, we think the Pashup pshat in the pasuk is not like Chazal who say it was Alpi Nevuah, right? But rather it's Pashup that there was a place named Dan before Dan became Shevet Dan. He says, in fact, the Banyas, right, which is in that area, is named after the Greek god, or I don't remember which nationality the god actually is, Ban, right? Or Pan. So it's right, it's Panias, I think. So he says it's not so outlandish to assume that if there's a Ban or a Pan, there's also a Dan. And that was that place somewhere of the north. So he says actually it's the fact that later on was named Dan was a coincidence, or maybe not coincidence, maybe it was designed. But the Pashup Shah there's already a place named Dan back then. And so today the Pashup Shah would be that there was a Gilgal next to Shechem, which already existed at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, before Yoshua made Gilgal number 2 when they entered Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Anyway, Rebbe Lezer argues. Rebbe Lezer holds, Ain't the Har Grizim B'Harei Vol Shakutim. Says go to Har Grizim Harayville. It's not the Har Grizim Harayville which the Samaritans had. Shemer says Halo Eimam Eivar Yardain. It says they're in Eivar Yardain, meaning Yardain U'alon, but here he means close into the Jordan River, not far away. Achrei Derech Mavah Shemesh, and they are beyond the way in which the sun goes. Makom Shan Chama Shokas. It's where the sun sets, and therefore it's not distant from the Jordan River, but rather closer to Jordan River, where you stand and you see the sun setting in the distance, at a far distance. Beretz HaKnani, and another more proof in that is that it says Eretz HaKnani. Elu ben Achivi, whereas Shechem is not Knani. I mean, it was generically all the nations called Kanani, but Shechem belonged to Chivi, right? Shechem and Chamor, it says, was from Chivi. And Ayoshi Ba'aravot also says that this Grizim navel has to be in the Aravot, in the plains. Elu ben Ahorim, whereas there are Grizim Aravel, which are the ones by Shechem, are among the mountains. Mula Gilgal, and it also says Mula Gilgal, and he takes this Gilgal as being the Gilgal of Yoshua. Ain't Gilgal, Eitzel Lonom Morei, it's no Gilgal by Lonom Morei. On the other hand, Ain't Lonom Morei, a couple words missing here, Eitzel Gilgal, right? They're not the same place. So that's the case, Mamakam Rebbe Lezer Hargrizim Harayvol. If it's not the one in Shechem, because of all the signs are off. So what Hargrizim Harayvol is it? So it says, they took two mounds, 2 hills of dirt, but the Torah is not to go to the Har Grizim Harayvol, rather to identify 2 mounds as Har Grizim Harayvol and give the brachos and clothes there. It's an amazing concept. Al-Taiti Rabbi Yehuda holds that it was up northwest of where they entered Eretz Yisrael. That day they entered Eretz Yisrael, that to go there, whatever day they went there, I don't remember, I think it was probably after Pesach. Whatever day they went there, they had to go 120 mil. Maybe it's the day they entered Eretz Yisrael, Taka. And then I went there and came back, because I don't think it's actually 120 mil, it's probably 60 mil in each direction. All of Israel is not that big, right? So it's probably 60 mil in each direction. Al Daikar Rebbe Lezer that they made an artificial Har Grizim Harayvol. Los doesn't become, they didn't go anywhere. Now a couple of other pshatim in these psukim. The pasuk only comes to give them advice on how to make an even pathway, because there's no more onan. In the midbar they had the onan, which was like a giant steamroller, but they didn't have it anymore. So how should they go? It should say, it says they should go on the road, not in the fields. But they should go in the settled area of the midway, not in the deserts. Ba'arava, they should go in the plains, below Baharim, and not in the mountains. Amar Eliezer Rabbi Shimon. So actually, all those things which are the Soschaim Barava and Bar Gilgal, Eitzel, and Moreh are just telling us walking directions, not necessarily telling us where it was. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shimon said, I said to the scribes of the Samaritans, you falsified the Torah, it was totally superfluous, it didn't do you any good. You wrote in your Torah, I guess in the Samaritan Torah, it says, they actually put in the word Shechem in that pasuk, so we shouldn't know that Eitzel and Moreh is referring to their Hargrizim and Arevo up north, right? So he says it wasn't necessary to do that. It's known that it's Shechem. You guys are wrong. We darshan Gzer Shavas and you don't. That's why you have to distort your Torah. What Gzer Shavas we darshan? It says here no Moreh, and then Malal Neil Moreh. It says elsewhere no Moreh. Milo name and bracious. Mala Allah, I think bracious. Ma Elonei Moreh Amur Allah, just like Elonei Moreh later on is Shechem, right? So in other words, later on here actually means earlier in Parshas in Sefer Bereshis. Elonei Moreh Amur Kan, so this Elonei Moreh in Dvarim is also Shechem as well, without having inserted extra words into the Torah. Now, Rabbi Shmuel said, he's out of left field here, but another shita about how they entered Eretz Yisrael. Eight time it says, when you come in to Eretz Yisrael, in the Torah, it refers to after the 14 years. In other words, they didn't actually get to Shechem, to Agriz and Ra'evo, until 14 years elapsed, because it says when they get into Eretz Yisrael, they should do the brachos and kos, and getting in according to Rishon means settling. So Sheva Shekim Sheva Shechilku. So they didn't have to walk 120 mil in one day, even if it was far away from the Yarden, because it had 14 years to get there, right? The Kavosah lo never brachos kos alachar b'asishara. Hey, so when the Rebbe Chanina asked for Raymond, what's actually say this? Voxi then say, when you pass the Jordan River, you put up these stones. So then these stones are the prelude to the precursor of the brachos and kos. So Amalei said, you could say Rabbi Shmuel, the stones did up immediately. However, brachos and kos, the actual blessings and curses, that only happened for 12 years later, 14 years later. Okay, how did it happen? Shisha Shvatim Olu Rosh Harbrizim. 6 Shvatim went up to the top of Harbrizim. Shisha Shvatim Olu Rosh Harbrizim. Those 6 went up to the top of Harbrizim. Fa'akwanim Malvim Baronom Milamato. And the Kwanim Milavim and the Aron would stand below. Plants and mill between the two mountains. Hakwanim Akivim Zoron. The Kwanim surrounded the Aron. Fa'alavim as the Kwanim and the Levim surrounded the Kohanim. Because Michan was on the slopes of the two mountains. Shema says, "V'choisos kena v'shovtav v'shovtav." All of Yisrael, its elders and its officers, and its judges. Omdim Yisrael, we said they stood on each side La'aron. Now, hafchu pnei Hargrizim, so Leviim would turn towards Hargrizim. Paschal b'bracha, they started saying bracha. Baruch Isha Shalo Yaseh Pesel Masecha. Blessed the person who doesn't make a idol or a form to have as Hashem repugnance, which Hashem finds repugnant. Maaseh Decha Rosh, you shouldn't make a crafts and works. Velos HaMasetzin, you shouldn't hide it. Now, this language is not actually printed in Chumash, I think, if I recall correctly. It says in the pasuk that they should say Oror Ha'ish. Cursed is the person who makes an idol and secrets away the idol. So actually, our Mishnah is telling us a chiddush, that even though the Torah tells us it only gives the orors, we also have to say the baruchs too. I better check this up to make sure I'm not making total fool of myself.
You have just Lashon Nakiya?
No, we have to do both. We do, towards our Greekim they did baruch, the Levim would say baruch, and then they turn around towards our Abel and say oror. Because it says the Torah has to say oror.
Interesting, the Carbonated says that Kol Arurim Hayomim Tchilo B'Lashon Bracha.
Right. Well, in the Chumash it's that way too. All the prophets are
But I think what he's saying is for each of the curses, if you correspondingly say the bracha, you have to say the bracha before the curse is said.
Right. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Which is to...
Yeah, it doesn't have the baruchs in the Chumash. It just has the orders. So actually, they would have to artificially create a baruch from the order and say the baruch first. Okay, that's what Ramish is saying that they did. So he says here, just avelu onim amen, they respond and say amen. Hachu pnei klapi arevo, they turn towards arevo, possible klol, and they start saying klol. Or Yisha Sher Yasep, which is the pasuk. Or Yisha Sher Yasep Pesel Masech, or the person who makes an idol image, Tov Asa Hashem, that which Hashem finds repugnant, V'gomer, V'yu Elu V'elu Onim Amen. And everyone would answer Amen, again, Ad Shagonim Brachos Klos, till they Brachos Klos. So what we have in the Chumash, in fact, as 12 Brachos and Klos, they already have doubled now to 22. And in Chumash we have 12 Klos. We've doubled by making all them brachos into 24. 22. Sorry. Okay. Tani, we learn. Revi Omer says, Yevshar, an interesting conundrum. Yevshar Lomar Levi Lamal, and you can't say the Levim are up on top of the mountain. It says the Levim have to be below, between the mountains. Yevshar Lomar Levi Lamata, you can't say Levi's on the bottom only. Shekvar Ne'emar Levi Lamala. I don't remember this, we're seeing this in the Bible. It's a very practical question, though. It says here, Veli Yamdu, it says, the Leviim should stand in the middle, right? And it says that on hard reason there should stand Shimon, the Levi, the Yehuda. So, was Levi up or Levi down? Right? It says Levi was stood in the middle between the two mountains, and it says Levi stood on hard reason. So, which one is it? So he says, not a question. So he says, again, Tiny Rebbe over you have Shalom Levi Lamalo, and you can't say Levi is the top Shekvar Ner, my Levi Lamata, it says Levi is down below. You have Shalom, my Levi Lamata, you can't say Levi is down below. Shekvar Ner, my Levi Lamata, it says Levi is on the top. So why do you reconcile it to Psukim? Me'ato, for now we say Zikne Kuna Levi Lamaton. It's like Shneksu and Machishim, and there's no Kosav Ashlishi, Achriya B'neim. So how do we reconcile between the two? There's more, it's not a kasha. We say, well, it is a kasha, but we can resolve it. We say, the elders were down below. The rest of the Lamal were on high. Rabbi Shimon, Shalomar, Levi Lamal, Shekvar Ne'emar, Levi Lamaton. Can't say the same question. Can't say Levi's on top, because it says Levi's below. V'yishar Levi Lamaton, can't say Levi's down below. Shekvar Ne'emar, Levi Lamaton, says Levi's up high. And more you must say, you must say that's a slightly different answer before, but basically the same gist. Those who are suitable still to avoid stay down below. Those which are not so charcoal shaped, those not suitable to avoid, were remain on high lamal.
The old people couldn't climb, so they had to stay down below.
So that's the one shot that's Canaan. Yeah, okay.
This is the original split squad.
Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Shimon says that Shimon and Levi were up on top, right? So what do we infer from this? So it says Rabbi Shimon, we infer from this, Ma Shimon Kula Lamala. It says Shimon was all on top, Av Levi Kula Lamala. So Levi is also completely on top. If that's the case, who is the Levim standing down below between the mountains? Ma B'kai Modei Tanya. What does he do with that? Which it says in the pasuk, Neger Kohanim and Levim, that the nation stood opposite the Kohanim and Levim. Says the Gemara, Kaidam Rabbi Shimon Levi. Says it doesn't say HaKohanim v'Halavim. It says HaKohanim Halavim. It's like Rabbi Shimon Levi said, Be'atzrim v'Halamekoyim. They said 24 places. Nikra Kohanim Levim. The Kohanim are called Levim. B'Zechem and there's one of them following HaKohanim Levim and Eitzadok. We see Kohanim Levim can be referred to Kohanim, and that's how we learn the case. In fact, now we've learned the case somewhere. Right, because the Levim were up on top of the mountain. Yeah. So we have to learn that the guys in between, according to him, according to Shimon, were all Kohanim, and they're called Levim here. Okay. Says Yochel Eshavar Grizim Ayoimim Brachos Ve'Eshavar Gavel Ayoimim Klolos. We say the ones on Har Grizim said the Brachos, and the ones on Har Evel said the Klolos, meaning not the Levim who were between, or Kohanim were between, but rather the people on top of the mountain said Baruch and Or. So it says the Gemara Tam Lomar Brachos Va'Klolos. It says plural. Yochel Mishori Omim Brachos Omim Klolos. Does it mean that they said all the brachos and then they said all the klolos? Tamor bracha v'aklola. Alternate. Bracha achas uklola achas. Okay? Now, also, another subtlety here, which one of them seem to be fully addressing, is that it wasn't actually Am Yisrael standing on the two mountains who said the brachos and klolos. Because the brachos and klolos were said by the Kohanim in between the two mountains. Just Am Yisrael would answer Amen on each and every one. That's clear. Once we take away the right to make the brachos and klolos from the participants in the mountains, so by saying that whoever said it said both, it has to be the people who are standing in the middle. Okay, who could therefore say both. So, Yochel Eshavar Grizim Ayonim Achar Brachos Amen. We say that those Har Grizim answered after the brachos Amen, and only after the brachos. Veilu Shabar Evel Ayonim Achar Klolos Amen. They would answer after the Klolos Amen, and only after the Klolos. Tamulomar Vanu Kolo Amvarmu Amen. Everybody said Amen. Elu Veilu Ayonim Amen. Achar Brachos Achar Klolos Amen. Everybody said Amen after the bracha and after the Kolo. Okay, so how did it work? B'shar shiur, brothers when they were saying brachos ayovchim b'nei klapei Har Grizim, they used to look at Har Grizim, but everybody would say Amen. Everybody would hear. B'shar shiur, because when they would say klos ayovchim b'nei klapei Har Evel, they would say him opposite Har Evel, right? But everybody knew that it applied equally to everybody. B'derech klal b'derech prat. Now they would say each bracha and kola in generality against Am Yisrael and specification against specific members of the community. Okay? So how many close do we have per, so far how many close do we have per one in the Chumash?
Close? 22.
What? How many brachos and close?
Oh, we have 44. You said 20.
24 and 48.
Oh, 48.
Okay.
He's so lousy.
So now, Sheshes Rebizos are called Dover. We have, in fact, it wasn't just 4. Or Bichlal, or Bifrat, Baruch Bichlal, Baruch Bifrat, but there were actually times 4. Sheshes Rei altogether, right? So far it's 4. Klal Prat on the Baruch, Klal Prat on the Or. Besides that, in each one we said there would be Lilmod Ulamed Lishmor Velasos. On each one of the brachos and kolos, they would use these languages of verbs to learn, to do, to preserve, and to learn and to teach, to preserve and to do. So on each thing where there's an aura mentioned in the Torah, in fact, we escalated. And we made a Baruch B'chlal, Baruch B'frat, Or B'chlal, Or B'frat, and with all these 4 different various permutations of committing the Avera. Okay? This took place also at Sinai and also Arvas Moed for the entire Yisrael. Rabbi Shimon Mighty Shal Har Grizim Shal Evel. Rabbi Shimon said, yeah, but it didn't place he said Har Grizim Har Evel. Avin Shal Oil Moed Tachteim, rather took place in the Oil Moed instead. What's the Oil Moed? The Mishkan, right. So when Moshe rebuked them in the Mishkan, he rebuked them with all these languages. And so the Rabbi Shimon used to say, there's nothing in Torah, she'en koros halav, chamesh mos v'shivin v'sheish brisos. There are 576 brisos on eighth naming in the Torah. How are there 576 brisos? Shtei mesrei bebaruch u'shtei mesrei baruch. There are 12. 12 in Baruch and 12 in Oror. Now, where we get the number 12, it's not clear. But we got 12 baruchs and 12 orurs, meaning we say 12 times. And it seems the Korbanei gives two pshatim. One is corresponding to Yud Beis Shvatim, and the other is that because it says orur 12 times in the parsha. So repeat each orur 12 times, one for each of the Shvatim, or one for each of the clothes themselves. And besides that, Ushtemesrei b'klau v'shtemesrei b'frat. And we also say the 12 on each cloud and each prod, in the collective entity of them. We saw it on each specific individual. So our boyim b'shmar brisos. So actually each one so far is 48 brisos. I know it was confusing. But each bracha was 12. They said each bracha 12 times, corresponding either 12 shvatim or the 12 general orders. And then they had to do it 12 times 4. Because each one had to be said, Lilmod Lame Lishmar Velasquez Ulukayim, right? Each of those 12. And then, they had to do it also, one Bechlau and one Befrat, right? So how many was all together? Yeah, I know, it's hard to keep count. It was 12 times each one. Times 4 components. Lilmod Lame Lishmar Velasquez Ulukayim. That's 48. Times Klau and Prat. 96. Right? So that's what Mara says. Oh no, what did I say?
Is more than 96. Because it's another... It's 48 times 2 for column prat, and then add that to 48. It's 96 plus 48.
Now I'm confused. Don't ask him. I was mad.
No, I'm just if it's column prat, that's 2, and it's 48 components for cloud and for prod, so that's 96 right there. And we have 48 to begin with, so that's 96 plus 48.
Yeah, but you're right, but it's actually, let's see what I can do without a board. There's Yud Beis, 12, right? Times Klau and Prat, that's times 2, right? That's 24, right? Times each one by 4.
96.
It's 96. So what am I missing? Let's read inside again. Shtemesei baruch, shtemesei baruch, ushtemesei b'klau, shtemesei. Oh, because I'm only counting one side of the equation. What an idiot. By baruch and orah together, it's 96 plus 96. What is that? That's 192. That's what I was questioning. Everything here, there's 192 brisos. Right? So that's it. So it's a share. Shtemesei baruch, shtemesei baruch, ushtemesei b'klau, shtemesei pad, and arei haboyim v'shmona brisos, lilmod lami lishma lasos, harei me'ev tishu v'shtayim brisos. Right? That's 192.
What is it mean by brisos?
What?
What was
They repeated it 192 times, each one of these things. But now we go up to 576. That's 4 times 192. How do you get up to 192? It's not 192. It's 192 times 3. What?
What's the 3?
I forgot. Oh! Because it said before. Of course, because it said before, V'chein bar is in the third line. V'chein bar sina v'chein bar v'osmov. All of these things are repeated 3 times. In Arvos Moav, and in Ar Sinai. So each time, even though it's only brought down in Torah once, the whole list of Orurs, but it was repeated 292 times, thrice. Once in Ar Sinai, once in Arvos Moav, before they entered Eretz Yisrael, and another time in Har Grizim and Har Evel. So it's 192 times each one in those 3 locations. Okay? That makes sense. You got it?
Yeah, I got it, but I could be wrong, and I could be way, way off. In the Korban when he explains V'chein b'har sinai v'chein b'ar v'osmov chol echad hayu sheshes risos al kol mitzvah. Does that mean not Torah Baruch, but every mitzvah of the Torah had a positive and a negative, and you go 192 times for each one of those things?
Yeah, it sounds like that, yes. I did actually see that when I was preparing. Yes, sounds like that. Yeah. Not only that, look at further. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Ishkvar Omer Mishum Rabbi Shimon Sheish Mils Elef Ushlosh Elef Chamesh Mils Chamishim. They repeated the bracha and kola 192 times for each individual in Klal Yisrael. So each guy, although the truth is that it seems that we could take out for the 12 Shvatim. I don't know if we have to take out, have to have the one multiple of 12. Anyway, they repeat it for each one of the members.
They would have gotten the message.
What?
Yeah, right. They would have gotten the message.
Yeah.
Within Israel.
Rabbi Omer, Inkadiv Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Ishkvar Omum, Sh'amar Mishum, Rabbi Shimon, said name Rabbi Shimon, Ein Chol Kol Dover Dar Min HaTorah, Shein Kol Yisrael V'Arboim Mishmona Pamim, Al Kol Pam, Sheish Mils, each and every time, Sheish Mils Elef U'Shloshes Halav V'Chameshes Chamishim, Akadun Dvarim Shenichu V'Nifratu. This, yeah, doesn't sound like it's on all the mitzvahs. No. This go ahead and stuff which is nichulu, which is included in the klal, and then nifratu. Dvarim shenichulu v'lo nifratu. What about things which weren't specified, meaning all the other mitzvahs besides those which are specified in the or in the baruchs? Amalei, he said, Kenam Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Shimon. He said, the kol shel v'chlal v'yotzim min haklal lamed. Anything which was included in the klal came out from the klal to teach. Lo lamed al atzmo yotza, doesn't just teach about itself. El lamed al klal kulo yotza, teaches you about the entire klal. So therefore, the last thing mentioned is Or Asher Yokim as Divrei Torah Zos. And then we would say Baruch Asher Yokim as Divrei Torah Zos, and we would multiply that, and that would apply. That's a klal, applies to the entire Torah. But now we know that each and every prat, each and every one of the 612 mitzvahs, other than Yokim Mitzvah Torah, or actually 613, it's not a mitzvah, all the 613 mitzvahs had their own, the all set brisim, which on them as well. And you asked me before, what is the bris? Somebody asked me. The truth is, it's much more than I said before. It's arvus. It's koisar ravens. That's really the bris argrizim ha'evel, was that I'm responsible to make sure you do your mitzvahs, and you're responsible for me to make sure I do my mitzvahs. That's what the bris was about. Okay, so it says. Where do we say kol shel bichlal yotzei klal lamed lo lamed atzmo yotzei lamed klal kul yotzei teaches about the entire mitzvah. Amalei, they said lo b'dover echad. That's only where you have one yotzei min haklal. So it comes to teach you about the cloud. But here, dealing with Shnei Dvarim, what about when you have two things? Here it's about two things or more than two things, because we have a whole bunch of things specified in these orders. Hasokas Gvul, and cursing one's father and mother, and Lifnei Iver. So there are a whole bunch of things here. So how can you say it's Lamed on all the things that aren't mentioned? So he says, Ksiv, I'll tell you, because it says, Orish Aleakum is Divra Terezos. It's since we complete the sequence with the cloud, that's the last thing mentioned, Orish Aleakum is Divra Terezos, so everything is included in that. Now, a little bit of a tangent. Says the Gemara, V'chiesh Torah no fellows, what does it mean you have to support the Torah? Does the Torah fall? Shimon ben Yochim Amar Zeh Chazan Shu Omed. It's a Chazan who stands up in Shul. The Chazan is not our Chazan, though. It's the guy who gets Hagbah. If he doesn't do Hagbah properly, that's Ora Shalo Yochim V'Sivir Torah Zos. So he's actually learning Kipshuto, not like the drasha here, which we have. That's talking about all of the Torah. But actually, he's learning a different shot. It's not called Torah Kula, but it's specifically by the Sefer Torah. Taken literally, right. It says in Shimon ben Chalafta Omer, yet another little shot. It's the house below. The Shah Torah explains that. He says, sorry about the house of the Nasi. And the house of the Nasi was below because he lived Shimon Chalafta in a place overlooking Tveria. And the Nasi's house was down below in Tveria. So they say, you know what? Somebody doesn't support the Nasiat. Amar Rav Chuna Rav Yidu Shem Shmuel Al Dover Zek Kara Yoshio V'Amar Alai Lakim. Yoshio ripped his clothing upon the Bizayin of Torah and said, I have to support it. So we see that the Nasi, who's the king, has to support the Torah. Rabbi Yaakov B'Shem Rabbi Tanchum Rabbi Chillah says, Lamad, if a person learned Torah, V'limin and taught Torah, V'shomer and preserved the Torah, V'os and did the Torah, but he says, Fekel B'yalachsi, he could support people who learned Torah monetarily. V'lo Yachzik, and he wasn't, that's how Rebbe Cha'or, it says, Or Shal Yakim B'stivei Terzos, cash. You have to support Torah. Yakim means to sustain Torah. Rabbi Yerushalmi Sotah said, Lo, on the other hand, Lo Lomad V'lo Limed V'lo Shamar V'lo Asa V'lo Asa Tzfeiko B'yal Hachzik. He's a total loser. He didn't learn, he didn't teach, he didn't work, he didn't do, and he didn't have money. But Hachzik, but anyway, he gave money whatever he could. I raised B'chal Baruch. He also gets a bracha. From Rabbi Chana, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Shem, Rabbi Chia, also Kodesh Baruch Hu last, let's tell Kodesh Baruch Hu going to make a special shade, L'Bali Mitzvahs, for the people who did the mitzvahs of supporting Torah, but Tzilo Shabali Torah, that they'll be in the same shadow of those who learn Torah. My taima, what Pasuk teaches us is, Ki b'tzela chochma b'tzela kesef. There's a link between the shade of wisdom and the shade of silver. It says, Eitz chaim hi l'machazikim bo. The Torah is a tree of life to those who support it. On that happy note, I take checks.